Every screen on a billion-dollar warship going dark in the middle of one of the most dangerous shipping lanes on Earth. That is not a movie premise. That happened. For 11 straight days, American warships transiting the Strait of Hormuz lost the ability to trust their own instruments. GPS signals fed false coordinates. Navigation computers displayed readings that had nothing to do with reality. Communication systems picked up phantom channels that simply did not exist. Ship after ship entered that narrow corridor and came out the other side rattled, confused, and unable to explain what had just happened to their electronics. The Strait of Hormuz is not a place where confusion is a minor inconvenience. At its tightest point, the navigable channel is barely a few miles wide. On any given day, massive oil tankers, cargo ships, fishing boats, and military vessels all squeeze through that same corridor. One wrong course calculation, one moment of uncertainty about your true position, and you have a collision involving vessels that can carry 2 million barrels of crude oil. Put a blind warship into that equation, and you are not just looking at a maritime accident. You are looking at a potential international crisis. American military intelligence recognized the pattern almost immediately. 11 consecutive days, every ship, same stretch of water, same symptoms. Natural interference does not work that way. Someone was doing this deliberately and doing it well. Analysts from the National Security Agency and the Defense Intelligence Agency redirected satellites over the region. Signal intelligence teams began hunting for the source. Electronic warfare experts studied the interference patterns, trying to reverse engineer exactly what kind of system was capable of producing such consistent, targeted disruption. The picture that emerged pointed to a single location, broadcasting a powerful, purpose-built signal designed specifically to hit the frequencies American navigation and communication systems depend on. That location was a small island called Larak Island, sitting right at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. Perfectly positioned, like a toll booth operator who can shut down a highway at will. When satellite imagery of the island was analyzed, it confirmed what analysts suspected. A compound with antenna arrays mounted on the roof, generators running around the clock, satellite dishes angled skyward. This was not a fishing outpost. This was not a weather station. This was a purpose-built electronic warfare facility, and it was Iranian. The decision about what to do with that information was not simple. Airstrikes were off the table. Iranian territory, potential civilian presence, and the international fallout would have been enormous. But doing nothing was equally unacceptable. Every day the jamming continued, American ships were at genuine risk. The longer the situation persisted, the higher the probability that something would go catastrophically wrong in those waters. The response had to be fast, precise, and quiet. The answer was the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit. The 22nd MEU trains specifically for missions like this one. Small target, hostile environment, tight timeline. Get in before anyone knows you are coming, accomplish the objective, and disappear before dawn. The plan called for MV-22 Osprey aircraft to carry the Marines from their amphibious assault ship directly to Larak Island. The Osprey is an unusual aircraft, taking off vertically like a helicopter, then tilting its rotors forward to fly like a plane. Fast enough, quiet enough, and capable of landing on a rooftop where no conventional aircraft could ever go. The Marines would land on top of the building, clear down through it, floor by floor, destroy every piece of jamming equipment inside, and be back in the air before Iran could organize any serious response. They rehearsed it until the movements were automatic, aerial photographs memorized, mock-ups of the interior built from intelligence estimates, room-clearing drills repeated until every man knew exactly where he would be and exactly what he would do. What they did not know was that someone on the other side had already started preparing for them. Colonel Reza Shirazi was a senior officer in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and he was not the kind of man who waited for problems to arrive. In the days before the raid, he had noticed things. American surveillance aircraft circling just beyond visible range. Satellite passes over the island increasing in frequency. Communications from his superiors in Tehran growing more urgent. He could not prove an attack was coming, but he had spent decades developing instincts, and those instincts told him that the Americans were not just watching, they were planning. So Shirazi acted. He moved his entire garrison inside the main building, where most of his men had previously been housed in exterior barracks, leaving the facility itself lightly defended. He now placed soldiers on every floor, at every staircase, in every corridor. He distributed ammunition throughout the building. He turned the jamming facility into a fortified position, and he settled in to wait. The Ospreys lifted off at 3 in the morning. No lights, no radio traffic, just the low pulse of rotors against wind and the dark surface of the Gulf sliding below. The Marines sat in silence during the flight, each man running through his assignment one last time. Larak Island emerged as a dark shape against slightly less dark water. The compound was visible from above, and the antenna arrays on the roof stood out against the sky. The Ospreys flared, descended, and hit the rooftop hard. And almost immediately, things went sideways. The Iranians were ready. Muzzle flashes lit up the roof. Bullets cracked off concrete and metal. Within seconds, the Marines were in a close-range firefight with a garrison that had been waiting for them. The rooftop was cleared in under 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes were brutal, and they were only the beginning. Going down through the building meant going into the unknown. Narrow stairwells, dark corridors, every doorway a potential ambush. The Marines moved in pairs, one man covering while the other advanced, room by room, floor by floor. On every level, Iranian fighters were in position and waiting. The third floor was close quarters, the kind of fighting where distance is measured in feet rather than meters. A Marine squad leader went down with a shoulder wound. The sergeant directly behind him stepped forward without hesitation and took command. That moment, unremarkable in the telling, is the entire point of what training is for. The second floor was worse. The Iranians had used heavy electronic equipment racks as cover. Metal server cabinets, thick enough to stop rifle fire, turned the floor into a maze of fortified positions. The firefight there lasted 6 minutes. In modern combat, 6 minutes is an eternity. Marines cleared the positions with grenades, moving through smoke and debris with weapons up until the floor was finally secure. And then they discovered the problem. The original plan called for timed demolition charges to be placed on the jamming equipment. Clean, reliable, effective. But somewhere between the roof and the second floor, in the chaos of the fighting, the demolition equipment had been lost. The explosives team had taken casualties. Gear bags had gone missing. The charges were gone. The jamming system was right in front of them. Still powered, still transmitting, still doing exactly what it had been doing for 11 days to every American ship in the Strait. And the Marines had nothing to destroy it with. A young corporal named James Holloway stepped forward, 22 years old, from a small town in Tennessee. Before enlisting, he had spent 2 years working in his uncle's electrical repair shop. He had rewired houses, fixed radios, repaired appliances. He understood cables. He understood what happened when you severed them. Holloway looked at the equipment racks and traced the thick bundles of cables running from the electronic systems up through the ceiling to the antenna arrays on the roof. Those cables were the circulatory system of the jamming installation. Cut them, and everything dies. He pulled out his combat knife. His sergeant grabbed his arm and told him those lines could be carrying high-voltage current. He could be killed. Holloway looked at his sergeant. He pulled his arm free. He went to work. The first cable was thick, heavy rubber insulation. 4 hard strokes of the blade and it parted. Sparks jumped. He moved to the second cable, then the third, then the fourth. His hands were shaking from the physical effort of cutting industrial-grade wiring. On the 5th cable, the screens in the room flickered. On the 6th, they went dark. The blinking indicators died. The hum of machinery faded out. Silence. 3,000 meters away, on the bridge of an American destroyer transiting the Strait of Hormuz, a navigation officer watched his screen. The GPS signal had locked in. The coordinates were accurate. The radar returns were real. He turned to his captain and said, simply, that navigation was back. The captain nodded and ordered the ship to resume normal transit. Across the strait, one by one, American vessels came back online. Systems that had been unreliable for nearly 2 weeks suddenly worked perfectly. Sailors checked their instruments multiple times, not quite believing what they were seeing. Clean signals, accurate data, everything functioning the way it was supposed to. They had no idea a corporal had just cut 6 cables with a pocket knife. Holloway stood up. His hands were cut from the sharp edges of the cable shielding. His sergeant looked at the dark screens for a moment, then looked at Holloway. "That was good work, Marine." That was all. That was enough. The withdrawal moved fast. Back up the stairs to the roof, where the Ospreys came in one at a time under the darkness. The wounded were carried up first, then everyone else. The last man counted heads, confirmed the count, and boarded. The ramps came up. The aircraft tilted forward and accelerated into the black sky. Below them, Larak Island shrank and disappeared into the dark. But here is where the story takes another turn. Colonel Shirazi was not inside the building when the Marines hit it. Hours before the raid, he had taken a small boat offshore and anchored there. He watched through binoculars as the Ospreys appeared over the island. He heard the gunfire. He watched the lights inside the building flicker and die. And he smiled. 6 months earlier, Shirazi had ordered his engineers to construct a backup jamming system. A second installation hidden in a different building on a different part of the island. Smaller but fully functional. He had always assumed the Americans would eventually come for the main facility. The backup was his contingency, designed to activate automatically when the primary system went down. It never turned on. 3 days before the Marines ever boarded those Ospreys, an American signals intelligence team had caught something unusual. The power consumption on Larak Island did not match what a single facility would draw. There was a secondary power signature, small and easy to miss. But someone noticed it. Someone asked the right question. A United States Navy dive team was dispatched to the waters off Larak Island. They located an undersea power cable running from the Iranian mainland to the location of the backup facility. Quietly, without a single shot fired, 2 full days before the Marine assault, they cut it. Shirazi sat in his boat that night waiting for his backup to prove its worth. It would be hours before he understood that it had already been neutralized before the raid even began, cut apart in the dark by divers he never saw coming. The mission happened in darkness and it ended in darkness. No press briefings, no headlines. The sailors who woke up the next morning and found their instruments working perfectly had no reason to think anything unusual had occurred. They checked their gear, did their jobs, and continued their transit. They came home. There is something worth sitting with in that. Think about the last time you trusted a system, a GPS, a phone, a piece of equipment, without a second thought, because you assumed someone had already made sure it would work. Most of the time, that assumption is right. And most of the time, you will never know who made it right or what it cost them. A 22-year-old from Tennessee with cuts on his hands. Divers working in black water without a sound. A signals analyst somewhere who looked at a power consumption number that did not quite add up and decided to keep pulling that thread. The greatest victories are often the ones that leave no visible mark. The danger that dissolves before anyone in the shipping lane ever knew it was there. The question that stays with you is not whether the mission was successful. It clearly was. The question is how many times something like this happens, and the rest of us just never find out.